A year after its initial release on PlayStation 5 and PC, Deathloop is finally out on Xbox in the Windows Store. It feels like a culmination of every Arcane game before it, from Prey to Dishonored and even the good parts of Wolfenstein Youngblood. You can feel the studio's mastery over the game's systems. Stuck on an island and trapped in a daily time loop, you will slowly uncover dozens of mysteries as you piece this clockwork puzzle of a game together. If you're anything like me, it'll be one of the most satisfying things you have ever done in a video game. Deathloop is an incredible achievement, so let's break down why in the XboxEra review. Awakening on a beach with no clue who or where you are, you stumble into a fallout bunker and find a radio. Almost immediately, an unfriendly but seemingly familiar voice on the other side starts berating you. This dynamic between Colt, your main character, and the mysterious person on the radio named Juliana is the heart of Deathloop. Once you've completed The Longest Day, aka the game's tutorial mission, you are met with the two sides of the game, destroying versus protecting the loop. Most of your time will be spent as Colt as you work your way through the narrative and try to destroy everything, and we'll hit up later what protecting the loop means. To describe just what the gameplay loop is, I'll have to get into some extremely minor and very early on story spoilers. You are stuck on an island in the Antarctic with no way off. The only way you'll quickly learn is to dispatch every visionary of Project Eon. If they all die in the same day, then the loop will break once and for all. So you'll be tasked with figuring out the perfect way in which every visionary meets their demise at your skillful hands. The structure of Deathloop is unique, innovative, brilliant, and overall it's just incredible. Days are broken up into 4 playable areas, with each having their own 4 times of day. It doesn't sound like much at first, but with all the variation on hand, especially as you follow the surprisingly linear quest paths, the clockwork nature of it all is genius to behold. That day cycle consists of morning, noon, afternoon, and night. After each night, you go back to the previous morning with the game world fully reset, but Colt retains any and all knowledge gained during the last run. Die enough each run and it resets back to the morning as well. While you can technically choose to go to whichever district you want at each point of the day, or skip entire periods of time whenever you feel like, the narrative always makes it clear when and where you need to go to progress. I saw talk before and around launch that the game is a roguelike, but it really isn't. There is a run-like nature to each day, but that only holds to your weaponry and gear. Every day works the same, with people in specific locations performing specific actions at the same time. It feels unfair to spoil the clockwork nature of it all anymore. It really is something best experienced with as little knowledge as possible going in. For the residents of this game world, it's still the first day in their minds. The only 2 people that can retain information between days and eventually gear and weaponry are Colt and Juliana. The mystery behind why that is, with dozens of others, had me hooked from the moment I had completed the tutorial. Early on, you unlock the ability to infuse weapons, slabs, more on those in a bit, weapon trinkets, which are mods, character trinkets, which are also mods, and slab upgrades, which are also mods, so that you can keep them even after a full day cycle ends or Colt dies. To do this, you use an in-game per-run currency, and the system and power ramp feel really well balanced. Let's get more into the gear, weaponry, and how it all feels to use. Deathloop retains the power-based type gameplay of Dishonored, but it feels faster, controls better, and is far more forgiving than any of their previous titles. After a dozen or so hours, I felt like a killing machine, able to take out groups of dozens of people as easily as I wanted to, as long as I used my various slab-based powers. Those slabs are your selection of supernatural powers, each tied to a respective visionary or Juliana. They drop every time you kill one of those big bads, and any drops after you've gotten the first one, and if used it, will gain you slab upgrades, which are incredibly powerful modifications for those abilities. One familiar power is Shift, which works similarly to the Teleport in Dishonored, and one of the upgrades for it allows you to perform an incredibly powerful kick while using the ability. Powers operate off a rather generous and quick to refill power meter. The other left-hand items are your grenades and the hack-a-majig. The latter is a brilliant addition that lets you hack doors, antennas, and more to even the odds in your favor. One of its main uses is unlocking the tunnels, which you use to enter and exit each level whenever Juliana invades your play session. The weaponry on hand isn't the most varied, but between the different rarity levels and intrinsic perks, you can find the guns that best suit your style. You have 3 weapon slots, and I always made sure to have a silenced gun for ranged assassinations, a powerful shotgun for close range fights, and a rifle for long range battles. There are multiple legendary weapons you can unlock through various side quests or that drop from visionaries that are both incredibly powerful and stupidly fun to use. To help you out with your shooting shenanigans is the weapon trinket system. These are a decent number of modifiers that can add things like extra zoom to any gun, reduce recoil, or even lower damage done by any target that you hit. Unfortunately, my biggest issue with the game, and it's a familiar one for arcane games on console, is how aiming feels. It still accelerates far too quickly by default, and even with as much fine-tuning as I could muster, it never felt great. You will have to rely heavily on the auto-aim that kicks in whenever you aim down sights with the left trigger. It's a heavy amount and routinely pulls you right to an enemy's head, which is great because you do want to hit headshots whenever possible. I tried the game out with a mouse and keyboard on PC, and while the movement did feel worse, it kind of felt like cheating with how easy I could pick everyone off thanks to the precision aiming of a mouse. Overall, the aiming system just isn't up to the standard set by every other part of this incredible title. The final main gear section are the character trinkets. These, much like the weapon ones, are a selection of mods to customize your run to your preferred playstyle. Some feel specifically there to help you make certain quests easier, so it's best to infuse powerful versions of ones like breathing in toxic fumes heals you, because it made a couple of the main quests far easier to complete for me. While you technically have 3 slab spots, one of them is always taken up by Reprise, which allows you to return to life 2 times each run. If you've used up one of your reprises and kill a visionary, you get a charge back as well. The only other issue I had with the game, and it ended up being a bit of a big one in the latter stages of my playtime, was the sense of repetition if you fail a task. I know it's more on me, but if you fail and have to work your way right back to where you were after a loop-ending death, it can just get frustrating. One of the visionaries initiates a stage-wide explosion with a short timer if you're caught in their facility, and the few times it happened to me, it just ended up being damn frustrating instead of feeling like a learning experience. Graphically, I think the game looks fantastic. There are 4 visual modes available. The first one is focused on giving the best visual fidelity along with some form of ray tracing that runs at 30 frames per second. Second is an unlocked frame rate, high visual fidelity mode with no ray tracing that works best on displays with variable refresh rate, as it can hover anywhere from 40 to 60 frames per second. Third, and my personal choice, is the steady performance option. This offers up a dynamic resolution with a rock-solid 60 FPS. Finally is the 120Hz mode that holds the resolution at 1080p. The game feels the best by far in this mode, but the visual quality and resolution hits were just too much for me to play with. And this is by far Arcane's best looking game to me. While the number of areas available isn't as many in previous titles, their size and intricacy can be stupefying at times. Character models look great, especially in the high fidelity modes, and I adore the art style. It's a weird mix of time frames, though with a mostly mid-60s aesthetic. It is all matched by some of the studio's best writing and music to date as well. Colt talks a lot and he's routinely hilarious. Juliana can be a little bit off-putting at first, but you quickly learn why she is as prickly and upset as she is, and by the end of things, I got it completely. Each visionary feels like a fully realized character as well, especially if you read through all the messages and listen to all of the voice recordings they've left behind. There is a lot of swearing in the game, and while it felt a bit forced at times, it's another thing I warmed up to in the end. The music fits the weird, somber, violent mood of everything perfectly. This is a dark game with a faux happy exterior. The combat tracks got my blood pumping, and the somber ones had me feeling empathy for those I had previously only seen as heartless monsters. I only ran into one major bug while playing, which was once when the UI in between missions bugged out and was showing my inventory no matter what I did. A quick restart thanks to the excellently short load times, and it was fixed, and I never had it happen again. Reconnecting to the online servers while using Quick Resume was a breeze, and the game is online for that Protect the Loop mode I mentioned earlier. Sadly, as this was a pre-release copy, I was unable to find other players to invade their games during the 4 days I had this for review. From what I've seen of the Hunter system while playing as Juliana, it should be fun to dig into, and the new crossplay functionality along with the Game Pass release means the player count should stay up a lot longer than it did back at the initial PlayStation 5 only launch. In conclusion, I think Deathloop is the best game that Arcane has ever made, which is really saying something. It is a brilliant culmination of their learnings over the years, and I absolutely love it. World-class writing, world building, and story are matched with fun gameplay, great performance, and one of the smartest game worlds I've ever seen. It's finally out on Xbox, and it's on Game Pass, so do yourself a favor and play this near masterpiece. As always, thank you so much for watching, and if you can like, comment, and subscribe, it is the best thing to help our channel grow, and you can visit us at patreon.com/XboxEra if you really want to help. We'll see you next time.